It's so easy to let a hobby as exciting and rewarding as reptile keeping get completely out of control. So, here are some things to remember. I'm going to break it down into three really easy parts: time, space, and of course, money. But we're going to start with space. So, we start with an empty room, don't we? Or maybe a bedroom or a lounge. And then we start to fill it with enclosures because it's such an addictive hobby. We're surrounded by life and these incredible animals, and it's wonderful. Trust me, I know, I've been there, I've done it in every room of my home. But some things we want to remember when it comes to space is the fact that we need to future-proof. So what I'm talking about here is it's all well and good getting a small animal and saying, here's your home, this is going to suit you for the next couple of years. Now, they may grow faster than expected, but even if they don't, we're still setting a time limit on the amount of space they can be in that enclosure for. And being great reptile keepers, that I know you all are, you're going to want to improve your standards down the line. So making sure that you're going to have space for that in the future is really important. Or you'll end up in a position like I am, where your animals are still growing, and of course you want to provide them with more and more space. And you may even consider getting more space of your own so that you can do that. But of course, making sure that you have that in mind before you get started is the most important thing. Now, standards improve anyway. So we can go back, 50, 60 years even, and look at standards that are far improved on now, and imagine in 10, 15 years to come, how much better they'll be then, and the size of enclosures that'll be sold as standard and things like that. So making space for these kinds of things down the line is really cool. Another thing that I want to talk about when it comes to space is actually being prepared to make some sacrifices. So in our home, we used to have 2 desks, computer spaces here and there, a table, things like that. Things that we don't have anymore because our animals needed the space more than we do. And you may have to make some tough decisions down the line to say, hey, do I really need a TV stand in my bedroom, or can that be a better space for one of my pets? That's kind of those decisions that come with having a lot of pets. And it's definitely not a hard decision to make. It's a really easy decision to make when you care about your animals, and I know you guys do. You all great reptile keepers out there. But something to think about before you go down this route of having lots of animals at home. So just to give some context on space. So obviously I'm showing you around my house at the moment and the enclosures that I have. These enclosures take up 86 square feet of my home. Now, actually, we've got a pretty good deal there because 86 square feet, that's just the floor space. But of course, we've gone up. So in some places, we've stacked 3 enclosures high. And actually, that's wall space and storage space that's taken as well. So again, something to consider when you're planning on expanding your reptile room or expanding your animals' enclosures in general. So that leads us swiftly on to money. Now, money is one of those funny things because you can go super high end, you can go as budget as you want, or you can go somewhere in the middle. That's a personal decision, and that's up to you. I go somewhere in the middle for my country and for what's available to me. A lot of this stuff is readily available and standard, so it would be considered basic husbandry, to be honest. But at the same time, that's just the setups themselves. We then had to consider, what if something breaks and they need to replace it? If heating breaks, I need to make sure I have spares. If a thermostat breaks, I either want to have a spare or make sure that I can get something fixed very quickly or something new very quickly. I also need to think about feeding my pets, making sure that there's food on hand, that I've got the proper supplements, that God forbid I need to take an animal to the vet, I know that the vet bill's going to be covered, and whether that be via insurance or just having money saved in the bank, it's important to think about. We're also going to talk a little bit about having to spend money on things like cleaning equipment and electricity bills. These are things that you're just going to need to have as standard, so making sure that you either put some money aside each month if you're in kind of a standard lifestyle like I have, where you get paid monthly and maybe a little bit of that comes out and goes towards a fund for the animals. But either way, making sure that you're prepared for the costs of looking after reptiles or amphibians or invertebrates or whatever animals you choose to keep. The next thing we are going to think about is time. So currently what you can see in the video is the spaces that I have for my cleanup crew and live food and things like that. That takes time to look after. The snakes take time to look after when it comes to handling. It takes time to feed them. It takes time to maintain their enclosures, to give them fresh water and scrub their water bowls, to clean the house to make sure that it's obviously a safe environment for the animals to be in, and all sorts of things like that, really. I think one of the biggest things that isn't considered when getting a large amount of animals is the time that goes into not handling them. I'm explaining that strangely, but like I said, cleaning. We clean for probably about 3 hours a week. On a day when we do a deep clean, it can take up to 10 hours. Feeding takes an hour a week minimum. Handling for us is about 7 hours a week. It's about an hour a day, sometimes a lot more. And then health checks we like to do weekly as well. So in the video here, I'm showing some of the animals getting a health check. It's checking their eyes, especially as they're going into shed, to make sure everything's as it should be. But giving them a good look over. It's easy when you have a lot of animals to miss something. So what you don't want to do is have an animal get sick and be blaming yourself, saying, I should have noticed something, or I should have seen something had changed. So we put a lot of time into doing that as well. And of course, weekly maintenance checks on equipment to make sure that everything's working as it should be. That's something that we'd spot on a daily basis anyway, say if it were heating or lighting. But if the thermostat's not quite calibrating properly, or thermometers aren't quite right, that's something that's worth checking as well. So I hope this video had some useful information. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button for frequent videos.